This summer, Hamilton is taking its American story on the road. After debuting their America 250 Roadshow in Charleston, Hamilton will be setting up at Hudson Yards in New York City on June 20th and 21st, bringing a hands-on experience that celebrates both the nation's history and Hamilton's own roots in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Visitors can explore Hamilton's latest mechanical and automatic watches, dive into the brand's deep connection to American watchmaking, and get a closer look at the limited America 250 Khaki Field Mechanical. After New York, the roadshow heads to Washington, D.C. on June 27th and Boston on July 2nd, continuing a journey through some of America's most historic cities. Learn more at hamiltonwatch.com or click on the link in the show notes. Now back to the episode.
Hello and welcome to the Worn and Wound podcast. My name is Zach Kazan. I'm the editorial director at Worn and Wound. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the podcast. It's that time once again. We've got our monthly Q&A episode on tap for today, and I'm really happy to be joined by two guests. We've got Worn and Wound co-founder Zach Weiss calling in from, it looks like, the set of Saved by the Bell or something similar. You've gone above and beyond with the AI background today, Zach.
Thank you.
Looks great.
Yeah, this one came out really well, I have to say.
Yeah, very nice. We'll make sure to include. We'll have Instagram, breakouts for this as we always do, and we'll make sure to include the background in that because it's worth a look. Cait, no AI inspired background for you, but also joined by Cait Bazemore, Worn and Wound contributor. Welcome back to the podcast, Cait.
Hi, good to be here. Yeah, I've never jumped on the background train. I'm always just transparent about where I am. It helps me keep my space looking semi-organized, honestly, to have to be on video.
Yeah, it's a good motivator to keep.
Don't.
Yeah.
Just say.
Yeah.
Involves too much cleaning.
I clearly haven't taken. I mean, my really area is like pretty. You can see my what is that? My air fryer in the background. if you look real closely, and the trash can.
You got a vacuum there.
Yeah, I got a vacuum there and a Swiffer. Yeah, so like evidence of maintaining a clean space, but listen,
evidence of being a human.
Evidence of being a human, exactly. Yeah, it's not. Listen, this is not like Instagram perfect. It's just real life. So that's where we're at. Before we get into the Q&A portion of the podcast, we'll do a quick wrist check. Zach, what are you wearing today?
Today I have on the Otsuka Low-Tech number 8.
Congratulations. That's a new addition to your collection. You were keeping me apprised of customs delays and issues. I'm glad it finally made it to you. How are you? I know you're going to write about it, and we'll do some video content around. But what's the early word on the new Otsuka Low-Tech?
It's pretty good.
Okay,
that's it. I'm really enjoying it. It's very different in every single way from any other watch I have, which I think at this point is what I want to find in a new watch that I actually purchase. So that's a very cool watch. I may or may not have one en route. I check my email frequently, just looking for that shipping confirmation. It could come anytime between now and December 31st. Is what I was promised. So good things come to those who wait, is the mantra that I'm keeping in the back of my head at all times. Cait, what about you? What are you wearing today?
I am still squeaking out the last of my time with my Moser minis.
Excellent.
On a different podcast, I was wearing the 28 with the kind of maroonish dial, and today I have the 34 with what they call silver, but I decidedly call this like charcoal gray fume. And
Looks
yes,
great.
more to come on those as well, but soaking in all the time little time that I have with them.
Yeah, that 34 millimeter Moser mini, it's actually like a very good size. It's like I mean it's a little small for me, I think, but like it's like it works, and it has like a
you could rock this entirely.
Sure, I think so. Like as like a like a dressier watch, something like under the radar, and like integrated bracelet sports watches always wear a little bit bigger than the numbers would suggest. So yeah, that's a really cool watch. I like those.
It's also a cushion case, which wears larger. I mean, this thing's 31 millimeters wide, which sounds tiny, but it's very wide. I don't know.
Yeah,
it seems very wide on the wrist.
I would have guessed wrong on the proportions on that, just looking at it on your wrist there.
Yeah. Do you have a bunch of 24 millimeter straps on order, Zach, by the way?
No, I'm in the process of picking one out. So.
Yeah. That's something I'll need to think about between now and hypothetically December 31st. I'm wearing the Christopher Ward Loco Brooklynite today on the rubber strap, just like a really easy to wear watch in the kind of like hot weather. I took a bit of a long weekend this past week. We're recording on a Monday, and I just was wearing this like all weekend basically. Nice. During some little mini heat wave.
6 days of power reserve.
Yeah. Yep.
One wind and you're done.
It's just it's just always going, keeps going. All right, guys, let's get into the questions here. We have a bunch of really good questions. A lot of like non-watch related questions, which I think is fun to kind of like keep us on our toes a little bit. But we'll start with a watch question from Sean, our chief question asker on the Worn and Wound plus Slack. This will not be the only Sean question in this episode. But he asks, what watch release of the first half of 2026 do you feel has been the most impactful on the watch community? This is different than like our favorite, although I think there might be some overlap for me with most impactful and favorite. Either you guys want to say?
How are we defining impactful? Would you say?
I think that's up for us to define in any way that we like. Is there a watch that had like a I don't know, like a major cultural moment, or like have we seen like the influence of something?
There's the unfortunate, royal pop.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of where my mind went immediately. Was that
a negative impact?
Yeah, that's an impact. I mean, I think that's like kind of undoubtedly the watch release that had like the biggest crossover moment, of the year, for better or worse. I think mostly worse, because people outside of the watch community got to look at kind of like the seedy underbelly of what happens at when things can kind of get a little gnarly. And that story I think hasn't fully played out yet, because I don't have a sense that people are like that they're like readily available yet. So it's still TBD, but I think that's kind of unquestionably sort of like the big cultural moment so far. The other watch that I think about as impactful is the Space One Baltic collaboration. I think that's another one that like just seemed to have like near universal praise and like pretty wide interest from like all sort of like sides of the community. But I don't know, do you guys have any thoughts on any other watches that kind of like meet this definition here?
It's like weird, because I feel like this year at Watches and Wonders there was not some like star of the show per se.
I agree with that.
Which is kind of the immediate moment, like when I'm trying to think of, at least at this point in the year, like that is usually a moment where there will be like something that rises to the surface. But I feel like there was just kind of more equality like across the board in terms of nothing really standing out particularly. And then my mind went to like, who's having an anniversary year, and has anybody dropped like a significant anniversary watch? And I know that there certainly is, but like, again, it's not immediately rising to the surface for me.
I mean, Seiko has a big anniversary this year, and they've just like gone nuts with they've released a bunch of anniversary watches. We've covered most of them on the website, but I don't think we've even. But I wouldn't think of any of those as being particularly impactful. In fact, I think many of them have sort of like been sort of
very
a bit of a
iterative.
bust. Yeah.
There's a couple of there's like the porcelain dial, or like there's a couple. I forgot what that series is called now. I'm totally blanking, but a couple of those are nice. But I don't feel like I'm seeing like a lot of discussion about them. Hopefully they came out. I didn't just break.
Yeah, we wrote about that.
Ignore what I said. One watch. I'm just like, also part of this is my memories like not great. I feel like for like remember like specific references this far out into the year, but just flipping through the archive for a second, and maybe this might be more like in retrospect a significant moment, but the Zenith Naohita collaboration. Obviously nobody could buy that except for the people it was like basically made for, but just like that level of kind of very large Swiss company, Japanese independent watchmaker, handcraft with high Swiss, like there's just there's something interesting there, and it definitely feels like obviously a nod to a certain type of enthusiast collector, just a very high end one.
Yeah, that's a good call. And I think it does have the potential to be like actually impactful, considering Zenith's plans to continue that as like a series with other independent watchmakers. So that, could really be the beginnings of something interesting. I don't know. It is tough to kind of like think through the first half of the year and what's been impactful without, there just hasn't been a lot of time, like the, watchmaking exists on such a large, span of time, like 6 months is nothing. So we won't really know what's impactful from this year for quite some time. But
I do want to call out, not that we need to derail the conversation and go down this road, but I want to call out that a number of the things mentioned were collaborations.
Yeah.
And I just think that's an interesting observation that, that's something I'm going to think about is like, are collaborative pieces something that I feel are making a particular impact in the industry? So that just lit up new thought processes for me as I consider those going forward.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that we definitely had like a period of like peak collaboration, like, a few years ago. And then I think we all, or many of us, sort of suffered from a bit of collaboration fatigue. And now it seems like we're getting some more interesting ones and more like well-considered collaborations. Like I think that Space One Baltic collaboration is like maybe the best watch either of them have been involved with, like in the history of like either of those brands. Like it's a really smart collaboration, and also like the Zenith Naohita is also just like very well thought out. So yeah, that's a really good call. All right, let's go to another question. This is the first of a series of non-watch related food questions. There's several of these. This is another Sean question, asked in rapid succession. I would add. What do you think is the most underrated or overrated pizza topping? I've got
two separate questions. One that is underrated and one that is overrated.
Let's do each. I think we can each kind of come up with both an overrated and under. So like my underrated is easy. It's anchovies. Anchovies are great, and people hate them. It's been a meme forever, since before there were memes that like don't put anchovies on pizza, but anchovies on pizza are good. I like anchovies. Saltiness, that umami flavor, it's good. It's not a regular thing, but every once in a while, if I'm alone, and get a pizza with some anchovies on it. Overrated, I'm going with pineapple. Pineapple, I don't think belongs on pizza. You pineapple pizza people are out of your minds. So yeah, that's my quick and easy answer for pizza topping. But what do you guys think?
I feel like I'm pretty basic actually with my pizza orders. I don't really veer too far from the classics. And actually in the last like year I've gotten back into just classic pepperoni. Mm-hmm. But no, that's neither overrated or underrated. I mean, that's there's plain and pepperoni. These are like, what you do.
Yeah.
I would go with just maybe like a vodka slice, like a vodka sauce. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that
as underrated or overrated.
As like underrated in that I don't really hear this as part of the conversation perhaps enough about pizza. And maybe it's more common in New York City or something, but like
vodka slice is really good.
Vodka slice, just a little bit of creaminess in the sauce. Overrated. Probably anchovies.
Overrated? People hate
overrated.
anchovies.
Anyone who likes that's out of their mind. Overrated.
Yeah. Well, listen, as advertised. Cait, how about you? What are your thoughts on pizza toppings? Not a topic I've ever discussed with you, so I'm really curious to hear your thoughts here.
Okay, so underrated ground beef.
Okay.
It's so hard to find. I think this is like, so while I grew up in Atlanta, my parents are from Kansas City and like all of my family is Midwestern, and like ground beef was a regular pizza topping like whenever I would be in Kansas City and growing up, and I feel like it doesn't really exist in a lot of places. So that is my underrated. My overrated, and I'm gonna garner a lot of hate for this, but banana peppers.
I like banana peppers on pizza.
I just don't. I like them in other contexts, but I'm just not into them on a pizza.
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
not something I've come across often. Like, that's interesting.
It's a little. A little esoteric as a pizza top, but I mean, I do enjoy banana peppers just like on their own and on pizza. So yeah, I mean, overrated. Sure. I don't know that I don't know. I have to think about that. Are you like anti banana pepper, like in general? Is it like not a thing that you enjoy?
I would eat them in like a Greek salad.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe in like a cold and like raw kind of context. Like I think I take the issue with on the warmth and the cooked of the pizza.
That's sort of my thing with pineapple, I think. Like, and the part of the reason I resist pineapple on because pineapple is like a refreshing cold fruit, and I don't I don't like it.
Yeah, hot pineapple. Just say it. Hot pineapple.
Not appealing. Not appealing at all. I think like what it comes down to, like I'm kind of with you, Zach. Then like I'm a bit of a traditionalist. Like most of the time I'm just going with like simple pepperoni. So I don't really like it's not this is not like a huge puzzle to solve for me, really. I'm kind of and also like I'm pretty easy to please. Like I'm not turning down like most pizzas. So
I won't lie. One of our normal orders is the like barbecue chicken pizza, which at this point it's barely even pizza. You know, it's like other stuff that happens to be on bread, but it's good tasting. You know.
I went to there's like a slice shop near me, and I went in the other night to grab a slice. It was kind of like close to when they were closing, and they were kind of like getting rid of stuff, and I pointed to a slice of what I thought was like a meat lover's pizza with like ground beef and bacon and pepperoni and like all the meats, and I got it home and I realized this is actually their barbecue bacon cheeseburger pizza. It had like a barbecue sauce and like not a tomato sauce, and it was fine. It didn't taste like pizza, and it really wasn't what I was expecting. So it was just a bit of a shock. But yeah, I'm not generally a fan of like the pizzas that try to be like a taco or or a cheeseburger or whatever. But like I said, I'm also not going to like turn them down. Like it's just not necessarily my first choice. Okay. Thank you for those questions, Sean. Always happy to talk about pizza. Let's go back to the watch world. Just briefly, Will H has a question about Seiko, which we were just talking about. What are your thoughts on Seiko at the moment? They seem to be continually diversifying the Seiko 5 line with the GMTs and now the 41 millimeter compass bezel models, yet they've discontinued some of their more popular SPB models in the mid-tier range, and then they are continually reiterating on the Marine Master. I just don't understand where they're at. Please help. Will gets to something that I think a lot of us have been feeling and identifying about Seiko over the last few years, which is that like they're just kind of it all seems kind of aimless like at this point, and they seem like they are sort of like looking at a like a segment of the watch buying public that they weren't maybe like 6 or 7 years ago when it felt like they were really enthusiast focused. Zach, any thoughts on kind of like the state of Seiko at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I just think they've really fallen off, from like almost like a heyday several years ago when they were reissuing the, their classic dive watches and doing the like, they finally figured out the formula to kind of like modernize those, but respect the sizes and things well enough. And I feel like we wrote about them a ton. I still have the SBB 149, I think it is, my collection. And it was great. I feel like they were very popular. They kept releasing things. Everyone was excited about it. The turtle too. And they did the first like turtles. And then since then, it seems like they haven't known what to do. They try to go back to that well, but they're just reiterating on the same models. They are inching up in price periodically. They did some movement adjustments and they put the 3-day movement in there, which is fine, but they plastered on the dial, which I just don't really think is necessary. So now they all say 3 days, and yeah, I just feel like the news doesn't hit anymore. Like I feel like we're not, I know obviously we still write about them, but there isn't this like, oh shit, there's a Seiko release coming up, kind of feeling, which was what I feel like it used to be. Yeah, they just seem a little confused right now. Like they don't know exactly what they're doing. And, anecdotally, there's also like, as we've seen too, like as they've kind of moved up to the $1,000 to $2,000 or even $3,000 price point in the enthusiast space, kind of maybe trying to leave room for Seiko 5, but like Citizen has sort of come in and taken over and done a good job of that. And seem to be kind of having their day now, kind of catering to the enthusiast instead. So,
yeah. And micro brands too. There's just a lot more competition, but from smaller brands, like you call them like micro brands or small indies or whatever. But yeah, it's a much trickier environment to navigate for Seiko now. And the thing that Will points to that like really kind of resonated with me is the way that they continually reiterate on the Marine Master, like that. I feel like every year there's just like another 2 or 3. I'm maybe exaggerating a little bit, but it feels like that, like versions of their like high end Marine Master in some sort of like, like tribute version or heritage inspired version. And they all just kind of like bleed together for me. And it's honestly just like hard to sort of like, just sort of like clock all of them. It's like they need to, it's too much. It's just like, it's too much. It's too iterative. And yeah, I think that they've lost that sort of like enthusiast sort of like cult following like that. The enthusiasts have sort of like branched off on other things like Citizen, as you point out, and other micro brands. And there's this is a lot more competitive. Cait, I know you're not like a big like Seiko person, but have you noticed sort of like just in the community, from your perspective, just like a shift in interest from Seiko to other things? I'm sure that like at a point, even if you weren't like interested in Seiko personally, like you were aware that they were this like important sort of brand to like, people who were interested in like value oriented watches. And it seems like that's really shifted a lot.
Yeah. First of all, you absolutely got my number. All of that was a very accurate portrayal of my degree of knowledge and involvement in the Seiko world. I think the most interesting point that you guys have raised is around the shift toward and the growth in the sector of so many new brands coming to market that are offering like this beautiful combination of more accessible pricing, and really nicely made, like robust pieces that I think brands like Seiko used to kind of have a bit of like a chokehold over that, and being able to offer like, whether it's water resistance or power reserve or whatever at these like unprecedentedly low price points that were really important to a subset of collectors. And now like you can't just kind of skate by on those two factors. Like you kind of, I think, need to be upping your game to be more competitive in that sector. Like it's, you know, it's growing. We're getting more and more offerings. And so, yeah. And I think, you know, like understandably, that's maybe difficult for like a long-standing brand to kind of negotiate that shift in the market and figure out what is our perspective going to be, like what do we want to be doing with our collections to like stay relevant but also true to ourselves, but kind of meet these market shifts that are going on. So I think that's like a really interesting point to arise of just like what's happening in that segment.
Yeah
it's interesting to look. Also, just if you like go to seikowatches.com and click on new, just to look at like the price points of everything there and kind of like, you know, based on this conversation, like what's coming up. Like you have a turtle, just a new Patty turtle. Like that's the same watch I've been making for like 8 years now, a slightly different color. That's one of the few things under 1,000. And then you have Astrons that are 3K, Marine Masters that are almost, you know, 35 to 4. The Vanak, the Seiko, you know, the King Seiko, which is a weird release, which I feel like just hasn't caught on. I feel like they look really interesting, but I've actually never even seen one in the metal, which I think says a lot too. They don't send these
I
out
saw
for
one
review
recently
very often. So.
I saw one recently, and I was pretty impressed with it. It was the first time I had seen one, and it was I thought it was cool. And yeah, like a watch that we.
When they're for the 3850, it's like they better be.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah. Which
is but it's I don't know. It's just a very funny. It's a strange mix, and just really doesn't feel like the Seiko of yesteryear or whatever. And then with the Seiko 5, it's like they have the 41 millimeter one. It's fine, it's cool. It seems kind of like a logical watch, a slightly larger field watch. But like, you know, last year they came out with the Gene Kranz, which I reviewed, and like I'll stand by like the level of quality of everything about that watch, the sizing of it. Just makes it seem like how are these part of the same line? Like, why is this thing this like 13.5 millimeter tall, kind of chunky watch where and then they're able to make such a finessed kind of vintage inspired watch, which people did go crazy for. That's probably the last like kind of hit watch they had. You know, and we didn't even get a press release for that one, oddly enough.
Right.
You just kind of had to know about it. Yeah, it's very weird. I hope they come around.
Me too. Yeah. It would be it's a more exciting and interesting sort of like space to cover when Seiko is doing like really interesting things that people are excited about, you know, like I think that's, and I miss that. I miss, that era where there were just like a lot of cool Seikos to cover and to write about and to, you know, and to try on. You know, it doesn't have to be like a binary thing. Like it doesn't, you know, we don't need to like lose Seiko in favor of kind of like the rising micro brands or Citizen or whatever. Like there's room for everyone, you know, in that sort of like, you know, say like $500 to $1,500 sort of like enthusiast space. So yeah, we'll keep covering Seiko. We'll keep looking for interesting Seikos to talk about and write about. But yeah, they're in kind of a strange era right now for sure. All right. So we covered pizza. We're going to now move to another carb staple. Andrew asks, what is your go-to bagel order? Do you toast, lox, or just a schmear? Are you a cinnamon raisin monster? I sent this question to you guys ahead of time. I never do that, but I wanted you to be prepared to talk about bagels. So yeah, let's do it. What's your bagel order? What are your deal breakers? What do you think is psychotic that people, you know, order in the, you know, at the bagel shop? Zach, let's start with you. Just thoughts.
Sure. I hope you start me because I'm a resident New Yorker. You know, it feels like this is. Yeah, I mean, if I'm ordering like a bagel sandwich at this point, it's either an everything or a pumpernickel bagel. Depends on my mood.
I like the pumpernickel. That's good.
Scallion cream cheese, lox, red onion. Though recently, I'm more of a, I don't know, maybe it's just getting old thing. Red onion's just been a little too much for me, but that used to be my classic order. And that was it. If I'm making it at home and like I had those things, I might add capers. But I tend not to order capers. And yeah, that's kind of the classic. That's kind of it. I don't ever order just cream cheese on a bagel anymore. I'll order like, I'd rather just get a dozen or whatever, like just bagels and then do that at home. I feel like they put too much cream cheese on if you ask for cream cheese on a bagel.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's got to have lox scallion cream cheese. Yeah. I did try dill cream cheese once recently. That was okay. It was okay.
Yeah,
It was an
I like dill
interesting
cream
alternative.
cheese.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
And then
I mean,
crazy anything sweet like strawberry cream cheese, stuff like that. Like no.
Yeah, that is obscene. Yeah, no, shouldn't exist. Completely agree. Yeah, the cinnamon raisin stuff, the sweet.
I like a cinnamon raisin bagel, but
see, I don't. I can't do that.
Really?
Yeah, savory.
I like
them.
And if they're really fresh, they're quite delicious. Just as like a thing to eat on its own. You just like a warm cinnamon raisin bagel, kind of picked apart. You know, I don't know. It's a good like weekend treat.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Cait, what's your bagel order, and do you have any like bagel takes, bagel, like important important bagel information? What's your
Okay, well, first, he did not answer the toasted or non-toasted question, which I thought was the most important.
I mean, I was going to get to that.
Part of the question.
That is implied. That's because it's an absurd question to ask, in my opinion.
Yes, because you don't toast a fresh bagel.
Correct.
You go to jail if you do that. That is wrong. And this is I'm prepared to die on this. I'm glad you guys are both nodding in agreement, because this is an argument that I have with some of my New England born and bred friends who just indiscriminately ask for their bagels to be toasted. And I'm like, that is insane behavior. Don't do that. Like, it's just, yeah. So I'm glad we seem to all be in agreement.
It's got to be fresh though. That's sometimes the challenge though, is determining the freshness ahead of time of the bagel place. Are you early? Are you midday?
Sure. But, yes. And this is like this. It requires you to have a conversation with the person behind the counter at the bagel place sometimes, which is like hard. I know it's 2026 and we don't want to do that, but that's like, that's part of the experience, I think. So yeah, like fully anti toasting. Like, get out of here with your toasted bagels, particularly if they're fresh. But yeah, Cait, your bagel order. What are you going for?
Okay, also very much in agreement with on the savory bit. I'm glad that Zach added a little caveat about the cinnamon raisin bagel, but for the most part, I like that we're also all on the same page. I am also definitely a savory bagel person, but I do have two moods. So one mood is I am extraordinarily boring. I think there's literally nothing better than an incredible plain bagel with plain cream cheese. I mean, just that's a comfort. That's a comfort food to me, just like as boring and simple as it can possibly get. What I'm imagining is going to be very controversial in this group is I can also go to the bagel sandwich with like eggs on it. So that's fine. For that one, I like a sesame bagel with like an egg and cheese situation bagel sandwich. The only caveat I will add is I do love an everything bagel seasoning, but I need it to be applied at my discretion. I don't always like the application of it on the bagel itself. So at home, if I'm picking this up and then bringing it back home to my house, I will be known to have my own everything bagel seasoning at home, which I will then apply at my discretion to either one of those bagel situations, either the cream cheese version, the very simple cream cheese version, or the sandwich version with the eggs and the cheese.
Yeah.
I have to say, I completely blanked on the fact that I had like bacon, egg, and sausage on a bagel this weekend. And look,
bacon, egg, and sausage. That's...
Not bacon, egg. Sorry, no. Sorry, I messed that up. Egg, sausage, like cheese. I don't know why I said bacon, egg, sausage, egg, and cheese. It just gets backwards in your head when you when you don't, because it sounds bacon, egg, and cheese is the name of it, but you replace the bacon with the sausage because I don't know. Yeah. Sometimes when you order sausage or bacon, if it's not like cooked right at some of these places, I won't lie, I'm in a bit of a bagel desert. The places around here, you're rolling the dice. You might get some real soggy bacon, so I go with the sausage.
Yeah.
But that was a great sandwich too. I just didn't even think about it because to me, it's more about those ingredients than the bagel. Bagel's maybe a little lost in the conversation, but it is a good vessel for those other breakfast goodies. This is a ridiculous conversation.
No, this is a great conversation. This is maybe like a top 5 One Around podcast conversation ever. We're finally doing it. The bagel conversation. So I'm like obviously like savory bagels like all the time. Like I don't touch a sweet bagel if my unless my life depends on it, and even then I don't know. I'm pretty much with you, Zach. I like the traditional sort of like chive, or sometimes I'll just do like veggie cream cheese with it's good at the place near me. It's like the veggie cream cheese is good. There's like a lot of veggies in it. So I like that with salmon, red onions, capers, and tomato. I don't know if you said tomato on yours, but that's sort of like
I don't put tomato on mine. Yeah. I'm a slightly tomato adverse individual.
That's fine. I mean, any one ingredient like on or off is like, it's fine. But that's sort of like my indulgent sort of like bagel sandwich order that I'll go for. Otherwise, I do just like a either like an everything bagel or a poppy seed bagel with chive cream cheese. That's like kind of like the standard. Not like daily order, because I'm not eating like a bagel every day, because I'm in my 40s and trying to live a long healthy life. But that's sort of like my go-to. And I'm also with you, Zach, that like a lot of times they just like they go crazy with the cream cheese, and I will usually ask for like a more moderate sort of like amount of cream cheese. I don't want it to like overpower. Yeah,
I agree with that too.
Yeah, and then like in my bagel shop, like down the street, like they know me, and because I'm there a lot, so like I it's kind of nice. Like I don't even really have to like ask like anymore, which is it's nice to be a regular at places. And like they actually like they make a pretty good bagel. Like people, obviously like New York City is the center of like bagel culture, and I have nothing bad to say about the bagels in New York City. I've had many great bagels in New York City, but like you can get a decent bagel elsewhere. You might just have to like search for it a little bit and get a little lucky. But but I love my bagels. I can't.
Some places in this country just make bread in an O shape and call it 100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Bread in the shape of a bagel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. So like it has to be. Yeah. You have to find like the actual bagels, the things that like but the things that make a bagel. And once you do that, just never ever toast it, because that's a mistake. Thank you, Andrew, for the question. I'm glad we were able to chat bagels right in the middle of this podcast. That just really made my whole week. This is a question from Charles Humphrey. Charles asks a few really good questions. We're going to get to, I think, most of them here. What's the worst advice you've given someone getting into watches?
Wow.
The worst advice. Zach, anything come to mind from like an earlier era of, your watch life? Anything that like you regret telling someone?
I don't know.
So the thing that my mind immediately goes to is like when I was like more interested in vintage than I am now, is like telling people that like originality is like the only thing that matters. Like finding a watch in the original, like unpolished, untouched condition. I kind of like have shifted my feelings on that a little bit. Like it still obviously is like a very important thing if you're like if you consider yourself a collector and you want to like retain some like resale value in these watches. Obviously it tanks if a watch has been been touched up in some way. But I think that you miss out on things that you might otherwise enjoy actually wearing if you are just like a slave to like originality in vintage watches, and then you end up with
being
watches that are like
being like
I mean, like
the real parts, like the original components.
Yeah. I mean, like unpolished cases and original components and dials that haven't been touched up. Like you end up then with like museum pieces that are tough to wear. And that's kind of a drag. So that's like advice that I used to give that I kind of regret. Cait, anything come to mind for you? Do you give advice to people on getting into watches? I try not to like honestly like give to like I think people need to like kind of find their own way a lot of times in this hobby. So
I definitely have given advice, and I would say more to like, you know, quote unquote like normal people in my life who I'm like their only touch point into watches. And so, you know, if something watch related arises, like I'm that person in my personal life spheres, but I can't, yeah, like a piece of bad advice. Like I was more thinking of pieces of like good advice that I feel I've given people. But
what's some good advice? Like shout yourself out. What's a piece of good advice that you've given people?
Well, I would say the number one piece of advice that I give people, which is probably about to be an unpopular opinion, but I mean, you know, again, unless you're buying like accessible price point, like, you know, under 4 figures, like I've just been a big proponent of pre-owned like all day long. Like I'm like never ever buy a watch at retail, like only ever buy it on the secondary market. And again, like I came into this industry in the pre-owned world. Like that's how I got into this space. So I have just come in very much with that lens and veil that kind of like has forever informed how I purchase and would like advise people to purchase. So that's probably like my number one piece of advice.
Yeah, and that is good. That is good advice. Like watches are expensive. They're made to last forever. So pre-owned is definitely, you know, like sometimes like the most viable option for sure. Zach, any you want to cop to any bad advice that you've given?
I mean, I can't think of like specific things I've really said, so that's kind of part of the challenge, you know. And like it's also like via speaking through the site or whatever. Like there's just too many things I've said. I'm sure I would regret if like somebody gave me a printout of all the quote unquote advice I've given. I'd probably regret some of it. You know, to me, it kind of goes more to like there are brands that I once supported that now I wouldn't support because they're probably, you know, after doing this for a while, they're owned by bad people and things of that nature. But I'm also not going to go into details there. Fair enough. You know, if sort of if you don't hear me talking about them, maybe there's a reason. No, I don't know.
The speculation begins.
Yeah.
Someone will be using AI to go back and figure out like what you've talked about before that you don't know. But.
And I guess I probably used to maybe like buy in a little bit more to like the specs of a watch versus like the price that it costs, like, you know. But I feel like I think that kind of changed at a certain point when the quality of watches kind of went up a lot. And like now, you know, a Miyota watch over $1,000, I'm not like at all opposed to, because, you know, the rest of the watch could also justify it. And there's nothing wrong with the Miyota 9015, even if it is like a, you know, let's say a $100 movement or something. That might be wrong. I don't know the exact price. Like that doesn't mean that the watch then has to be $800, right? There's a lot more that goes into it. But I think there was a point in time when like watches, particularly microbrand watches, just like had kind of there was a bit of a ceiling in like the level of fit and finish. So like, I don't know, they were more on an equal level. Yeah. If anything, it's harder now to figure that stuff out. And sometimes more frustrating when it gets thrown back in your face of the like, oh, so-and-so brand shouldn't be 600, shouldn't be 1200, whatever, because they're using XYZ. It's like,
right.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question, Charles. I think it's a good exercise to think back on what we've said in the past. And I'm with you, Zach. I don't want to look back at printouts of everything I've said on the site. That would no thanks. Hard pass on that. All right. I think we've got time for another couple of questions. Charles actually has another question that I wanted to ask. I wanted to, pose to you guys. What's the best summer watch that's not a dive watch? Price point irrelevant. I'll start by saying, like, I don't think that a summer watch needs to be a dive watch by any means. Like we've talked about this quite a bit. I think that, summer watches can kind of like exist in all facets of watches. Like it's, for me in particular, it's really more about like comfort and wearability in the heat Like that's sort of like what makes something a summer watch. And aesthetically, I like in the summertime I tend to gravitate more towards like brighter colors that sort of look like Zach's background right now. I feel like that's sort of like a summer energy. I was actually wearing my like a week or so ago, I put my my Fears Brunswick Aurora, which is a mother of pearl dial, on like a canvas 2-piece strap. And I thought that worked really well. And it's probably like a combination I'll go with like over the course of the summer. It's like very lightweight. And I think canvas is a, good material, for the summer months. And that dial just like is very, it's just a beautiful color, in that dial that feels summery, but that's obviously not a dive watch. And it feels like, I would normally wear that watch either on the bracelet or on like a leather strap, and on a leather strap, that's unappealing, in the summer. But I think on a fabric, on that canvas strap, I thought it worked really, really well. See if I can put a photo in the show notes, because I think it was a pretty good look. Anything come to mind for you guys? Just a good summer watch that's not a dive watch at any price point. So feel free to get into Richard Mille or whatever if you need to.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, you touched on at least a lot of the qualities, like lightweight and colorful. I have a number of the like Swatch, what are they, like System 51 or something? 51,
yeah.
Like that. I have a number of those. I think those are great summer watches. I even have one of the children's like Flick Flack watches that's like super colorful and just feels like you're wearing nothing on your wrist. Like, yeah, it's like funny to me. Like, you think like, oh, like integrated bracelet sport watch, like casual for the summer days. And like, to me, like sometimes a full metal situation can just really, really weigh you down and sweat up your wrist on a summer day. So I think like anything lightweight, not all rubber straps are equal in my opinion. I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about rubber straps, but that kind of lightweight energy for sure. And that's not number one quality, I think, for me is lightweight, something that's breathable on the wrist.
Yeah, for sure. How about you, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, the same, really. My NATO straps come out during the summer more often. Also, because like if I go to the office, I tend to walk. It's about a 3-mile walk, and like so I will definitely be sweaty from that in the summer. And like with a nylon strap, like including like I know people are annoyed by NATOs because they have like the material underneath the watch, but that's just less sweat getting to the back of your watch to me. So it's like actually kind of nice like that. And then I'm kind of drawn. Yeah. I mean, really the same thing you guys said. Like I'll probably go for more of like a field watch kind of watch. They tend to be simpler, smaller, lighter. Right now my collection, that's like my Habring Irwin, pilot watch, but I don't know, I think of it as a field watch. It's just like a good summer watch because of that. But I know the other day I wore what do I call it? My Gallet, which is vintage, which probably not a great watch to sweat a ton into, but it was like the light colored dial on that was kind of what drew me to it, because I had like a lighter colored linen shirt on, so did a little color matching. But it was like terribly hot in the city, so I was subbing it that day. But yeah, I think it often comes down to like, which watch am I okay sweating against the most? Like, not really into wearing the Longa if I'm going to go sweat a ton on the watch right now. So
yeah, no, I mean that's really not the. I mean, yeah, that's sort of like that's the rule, is like don't wear a watch that you would feel bad if you just like sweat profusely into. So yeah, like some of the more valuable or less water resistant stuff is not great sometimes in the summertime.
I think it's interesting. Suntan lotion as well. Ugh.
Yeah.
I think it's real gross.
Yep. Yeah. Don't do that. All right. One last question here from Mike J. I think this is an interesting one. What is your definition of an enthusiast watch brand? I think this is like an interesting this is a term I think that like we've all sort of like, thrown around. I certainly have like used it in the past in a way that like to sort of like, not as a substitute for micro brands, but like for brands that I feel like are like really engaged in the like enthusiast world. But I'm wondering if there's like a better way we can we can define that. It's sort of related to that like age old question of like what makes a micro brand.
Yeah.
But I think that like an enthusiast brand can be something that is like, like definitely not a micro brand, and that exists at like a much different price point potentially. Zach, you want to take a crack at this one? Is that even is that a term that you like are comfortable with, or that you've used?
I haven't really used it that much, I think. Like an enthusiast brand. But now that I'm thinking about it, and I feel like we've talked about this before, where like we kind of need to revisit what micro brand means like every few years. And now it's such a big sector of the watch world, and many of the brands in there like that we once qualified or have showrooms and stuff in the world. Like how's that a micro brand? Like if you're micro meaning small, like they don't add up anymore. I think enthusiast brand almost sounds better because there's no implication of scale of the company, right? And it's like maybe a brand that really launched to satisfy the enthusiast market, but then maybe grew beyond that, but still in some way services those watches. But a brand that comes to mind, it's like Christopher Ward because of a few reasons. I mean, one, just who they are, where they've been for the last 20 years or something, and how they kind of grew up with the forums. But then because they make a lot of watches literally for groups of people, like and that might be very literal, but like a lot of like clubs and things just order their watch, like 50 watches or something from them, and they cater to that, and they like have built out a division for that. They make it easy. So it's like a very literal definition, but I think that speaks to a brand, philosophy that is enthusiast driven,
Yeah. So. I like the definition. That's not really an angle that I had thought of before, but I think that makes a lot of sense, and is like a literal way of kind of like showing how a brand sort of like engages with that community, like making watches like for specific communities. So yeah, Christopher Ward definitely I think falls into that into that category for sure. Cait, how about you? Any thoughts on like what might make a watch an enthusiast, or a watch brand an enthusiast brand?
Yeah, I mean, first I will preface with I am struggling to think of a specific brand that I think really embodies these two thoughts that are coming to my mind. And again, I appreciate this question. Very, very like thought provoking. I want to spend more time actually thinking about brands that I think meet these criteria. But I mean, the very first thing that came to me was kind of like value proposition. So again, not necessarily saying like accessible price point, but like a really like the money and the quality, like really like presenting a lot of value for like whatever you're paying. The second piece that came to me was, listen, like, I'm, as many people know, like I'm also write like poetry, in my personal life. And so I feel connected with artistic communities, and I always have. And I understand the watchmakers, again, who specifically kind of fall into like an independent kind of category, who like they consider themselves an artist, and rightfully so, and like they are creating watches that are their artistic expression, and it's kind of like, okay, like take it or leave it, like if you connect with them and you resonate, great, but like I'm doing what my artistic vision calls me to do. I think there are watchmakers that operate from that place, and again, like that's fine, but I don't think I would call you an enthusiast brand. Like I think a brand who separates their own perspective and like has been very thoughtful about like who do they want their collector to be, who do they want their audience to be, and like making watches from that place rather than from their own creative sensibility that needs to be expressed. Like I think that's what I would define as an enthusiast brand. And that doesn't mean being like whipped around by like, you know, the consumers are demanding this, and so I'm just going to throw out all of my own like morals or values or, you know, creative perspective and just like meet the market where it, you know, what the market is demanding. But somebody that maybe like, yeah, sets aside maybe a little bit of their own ego like in the process and really thinks about like the end customer that they want to attract and making watches to like fill their specific need from style, from functionality, you know, maybe from price point as well. So yeah, I don't know. Those are the two kind of, maybe more than two, but those are the kind of concepts that come to my mind. But I would like to think more about brands that I think are embodying this. Like, I think this is a really fantastic question.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting way to another interesting way to look at it. And so the way I kind of like started thinking about this when I was considering, you know, how to like answer this question is that sort of like a different way of like literalizing it is like a brand that is kind of like by enthusiasts, a brand that like comes from like an enthusiasm for watches and like is like comes from the community. There's plenty of brands like meet that definition. Like Zach, your brand like meets that like that definition. Like you're an enthusiast. You made a watch that is, you know, like has like so many details that like are kind of like designed for like enthusiasts to notice, I think. And another brand that like kind of comes to mind, you know, for me as I was thinking about this question is Now Yahida. Like Now Yahida is a brand that you know, infuses their watches with like all these little details that would go like relatively unnoticed by most people, but enthusiasts like pick up on like the feel, like the winding feel because of the way they've modified a Valjoux 7750, you know, movement for many of their watches. And of course, like the brand was started, you know, out of enthusiasm, you know, out of like a collecting culture. So yeah, that's kind of like how I was like thinking about it. But yeah, it is sort of like a different. I think there's a lot of ways to kind of like to sort of like filter that like enthusiast idea, you know, into like the brand ethos. And it's like I think it is like a really kind of like, you know, sort of like thought provoking way to like categorize a watch brand, because I think we can all think of brands that are like not enthusiast watch brands, you know, like, you know, maybe they're brands that like have a certain enthusiast appeal, but they're like mass market brands that don't operate in a way that is like necessarily like enthusiast friendly. So yeah, that's sort of my thoughts on the enthusiast brand question. You guys have anything else to add before we wrap it up, put a bow on another month of Q&A? I'm getting no. We did it all. We covered a lot.
I mean, I don't know. Like there were some kind of like hard hitting questions today. To be honest, like questions that are going to continue to like linger with me. The watch questions. You know,
we covered.
I loved our food. You know, I felt very united in our food conversations.
It just occurred to me that we covered pizza and bagels, but we didn't mention pizza bagels at any point in this conversation, which might be
and you know what, Zach's background is really screaming pizza. That's like of the pizza bagel era, if ever there was one.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Zach.
I had a
thanks,
pizza.
Kate,
I couldn't tell you last time I had a pizza bagel. That's probably like
it was a sleepover.
School.
It was like a sleepover when I was in middle school.
It was pre-bar mitzvah for me, for sure. So that was a very, very, very long time ago. Thanks, guys, for joining me on the podcast. Always appreciate you having. Always appreciate you guys coming on, and thank you as well to everyone who asked a question for this month's Q&A. We appreciate it. We love fielding your questions, keeping track of them. So if we didn't get to a question that you asked this time, it might return in a month, and we'll also, of course, put out a new call for questions as well. Thanks again, everyone, for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode. Until then, take care.